So Mistral released Codestral Mamba recently, and the idea is that Mamba is a newer architecture. It doesn't use the traditional GPT architecture that most other LLMs use. And the idea of Mamba is that it's bi-directional, so it can read the context backwards and read the context forwards. And supposedly by doing this, it is smarter and it can have a wider context window. And in today's video, I'm going to go through the article, do a full test, and then show you like how good it is. Here's the article from Mistral. So they're claiming that it beat all the other scores of the other LLMs, so like 75%, 60%. And the thing is, you can almost never trust these metrics because I feel like a lot of these open source models, they are training their data on the test questions. So I would not take this, I would take this with a grain of salt. The only thing that's interesting they said is that they have 256 tokens. So I don't know if it's, so this would be amazing if it's true, but we don't really know. So let's get into the test. So what I did was, I went into Mistral, I created an API key, and then basically I'm going to test each function, each prompt, and these prompts are what I would use as a developer or people in my company would use, and they're not just dummy gibberish questions that other YouTubers are using. So I want to show like its true capabilities and not just what like simple things people are doing. So let's get started. So the first one I have is just a simple test. So write a Python function that takes a list of integers, returns a new list containing only the prime numbers from the input list, optimize the function for efficiency, and provide a brief explanation. So I'm going to run it. Okay, so now that I do this, so it's like find the prime numbers. If it's not number, return empty array. Then it runs a sieve through it. So for the most part, this is pretty good. So yes, it can pass the standard test of just understanding some logic and writing the code. Now I'm going to do a more real example. Generally speaking, when I use ChatGPT or other LLMs, the way that I use it for development would be, hey, I want you to be a React expert at Tailwind, React, and HTML. So basically specify the technologies you want to use. Then they say, here are my requirements below, please create me the POC. So now I'll list all the requirements I need, and then I'll tell it to generate me the first version. I'll run it, make sure it works. If I want to make a tweak, then I would paste that code back in and say, make this tweak. And then they'll make the tweak. And then go iteratively until it solves what I need. And then add more stuff to it later. So that's generally how I use it. And I feel like a lot of other YouTubers and stuff, they're not really showing that. They're just showing very basic tests. So I'm going to show you how it works for a real example, and then you'll see how good or bad it is. So here, I said, you are an expert at React development, Tailwind, and HTML. I'll give the requirements below. Please code the solution, but don't give me explanation. So I said, create a dashboard interface where 1/4 of the width column, and then there's 3/4 of the width column, right? So we will put links to the pages on the 1/4 list column, and then put the dashboard on the 3/4 width column. And on the 3/4 width column, I want 4 columns per row, and I want to put a widget in each one that's controlled by a config object. And then here I describe what the JSON config objects are. And then I want them to hardcode an initial config and then populate 5 of the widgets. And then I want the columns to be responsive. And just for simplicity, I want them to put it on one file with CDN. So let's run it. Okay, so I'm looking here. So first off, it didn't listen to me about the CDN, okay? And then it's using these 2 random libraries. Okay, so far the code looks okay here, assuming the libraries work. This looks okay. This looks okay. And then, yes, it is putting it, but it forgot all the CDN stuff. So it sounds like Mistral's not very good at following a lot of instructions. Maybe if it's like 2 or 3, it's good, but after that, it sucks. And like these libraries, I don't know if they actually would work with this. And then I'll give you another example, right? So if I was to copy this code here, and I go to ChatGPT and do this, it will give me a more full answer. See, it actually did the CDNs, it's put it on the one page, and this is something that I would take and then I would make use of it, and it would, generally speaking, it would work. So if we're talking about like React development, I think Mistral is really bad compared to GPT 4.0. Okay, so let's go moving on. So let's give Mistral another chance. So let's go do some backend development now. So we have, you're an expert at Node.js development. I'll give you the requirements below and please code it. So create me a pub/sub system where users can call the API post/room to create a new room and return the room ID. Okay. Then create a post API to the room where I can give my user ID and what I am sending to the chat, and then tell me if it's successful or not. Then I will have an API to get me back the chat history, and then I want a check API here that will basically do long polling to make sure if there's a new message, tell me, or if someone else is typing. So I'm going to run this. So when I run this here, okay, it looks okay here so far. There's rooms, so catch track the rooms. For the chat, see here it says emit to the chat room, but then we never initialized the chat. So this doesn't gonna work. And then getting the chat room, okay, fine. And then for the check, is checking for the typing. But then where do we submit the typing to the server? It's not here. And then it forgot to check for new messages. So as you can see, like it looks like it's not fully working, right? So it sounds like it's also not good at backend development. So let me just go to ChatGPT and show you like what would ChatGPT give you as an answer. So yeah, at least like ChatGPT will at least give you typing status in the room. And it looks like it's giving a slightly better question. ChatGPT also didn't handle the typing very well, but it's a better answer than Mistral. So I think Mistral so far has been bad at front end, bad at backend. Now the next thing would be, all right, so a lot of the LLMs are trained on the main language that they do, so mainly Python and Node. But for our language, it's not good. So here I'm just trying to make a simple test to see how good it is at programming other languages and how good's the response. So here I said, you're a PHP expert. Create the code to solve a very common algorithm for the end queen problem, which involves placing queens on the board, and give me the answer. So I'm gonna run it. And I'm gonna run the same query on ChatGPT. And let's see the answers. So here, it solves it with is safe and it prints a solution. So this looks okay. So well, let's see what ChatGPT says. So it's generally roughly the same answer. So I think it has a good understanding of PHP. So I think PHP is okay for Mistral. Now let's try C#. And let's do the same thing on ChatGPT. So it looks like roughly the same answer. So it looks like it can do C# as well. Okay, so now let's do Ruby. So it looks like it's the same answer for Ruby. So it sounds like it can do Ruby as well. So Python, it should work well because Python's the main language. Yep, so it looks right, all right. Now let's go to, let's go with more weird languages. So there's Lisp, which is from 50 years ago. Let's see how it answers. So it looks like the ChatGPT one is longer and there's more steps here. So I think maybe it's not as good for older languages. And then we could do it for Haskell, which is not our old language. So it looks like ChatGPT has a more deeper answer than this one. In summary, this model is not very good compared to GPT-4o. It's not good at React. It's not good at backhand. It's very good for basic questions. So when you see metrics that they push, I don't really think that's very accurate. And I don't think this is a good enough model for us to use right now. And we'll have to see more in the future.